Hello, this is Miss Kyler, and this is my little talk on Gunga by Rudyard Kipling for your English 2323 British Literature 2 class. And I just wanted to kind of point out that, as you've seen, that Gunga is a very controversial poem, and it deals a lot with imperialism of the Victorian era, and it also deals with the concept of othering. So here are some basic facts about Rudyard Kipling. He was born in 1865. He died in 1936. So he saw a lot of the transitions that were going on from the Victorian age to the modern era. He was born in Bombay, India, where he had a pretty happy childhood in India. He kind of saw it as this kind of an adventurous paradise. But as an older child, he was sent back to England to attend school, and there he was beaten a lot. He was made fun of. He was bullied a lot. So he actually came to expect to be bullied, that people were out to get him. And that could have been a result of his being, pampered as a child. So he was a little spoiled. So other people thought that his guardians and his teachers and his fellow classmates felt like they had to put him in his place and teach him what life was about. So they treated him pretty badly. And he also didn't do very well in school. And they found out later on that his poor performance was linked to the fact that he needed glasses, which is pretty sad. That he found out that later, and I think that was pretty common. That at that time they didn't just generally expect that children were going to need glasses. He did receive the Nobel Prize in 1907 for his literature. However, his literature is thought of as very male chauvinistic, misogynistic, racist, and very patriotic, right? Because he's very loyal to England, and he believes in imperialism. He believes it's the destiny of England to rule and civilize the world. And so he actually wrote a book called The White Man's Burden that became a concept, just like othering is a concept, and they're both very closely linked. And here you have a picture from the film Gunga Din, and that's a picture of the water carrier, Gunga Din, the character, actually wearing a British uniform and saluting as a ghost. So this is after he's died, and the soldiers are remembering him, and they're imagining, oh, if he's in heaven now, he'd be so happy to be thought of as one of us. So the white man's burden is a concept that it is the duty of white civilization to care for the rest of the world. So they feel like, okay, we need to educate them in the white man's ways. We need to they need to spread our religion. We need to give them modernity, build up their infrastructure to match, the white world's infrastructure, etc. So often the idea is that, the white civilization's ways are the better ways, and those of others are inferior, and that of course, the concept is, of course, others were desiring to become like the white culture. So it's a gift that the white culture is giving to the rest of the world. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of the poem and the speaker. The speaker of the poem, as you can tell when you read it, you can see kind of the dialect going on there. There's a rough, working-class, enlisted man fighting to keep the peace in India. At this time, of course, there's people that don't want to be ruled by England, so they are rebelling against Great Britain. And there are the people that, there are different factions that are going and fighting each other. So the speaker is someone who's having to always constantly be on their guard, being shot at a lot, trying to guard the forts, going on little missions to get from one fort to the next to bring help, very often in rough terrain. And when he's not working, he's probably playing rough. He's drinking and he's fighting with his fellow soldiers and pushing people around. So he's kind of a rough exterior, but someone that also has kind of a soft spot deep down inside him. So the tone is rough. There's some racist overtones on the surface, like when he says the black-faced crew, the finest man I knew. But he has warmer underlying tones. So racist, gruff, tough on the surface, but warm in underlying tones. Now the poem is structured a lot like a ballad, so that would be like a narrative with a repeated refrain. This is a very interesting narrative because he's telling the story after he's dead. So he's telling the story or thinking about it when he's either in hell or in heaven or in some other afterlife existence, reflecting on what he learned about people on earth. And each stanza, there's like two sestets. A sestet is a stanza of 6 lines. So there's 2 of those crammed together into one big stanza, followed by a 5-line refrain at the end. And it's kind of like the bob and wheel that we may have seen if you took British Literature 1. The bob and wheel was, famous for being in the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So there's the sort of the bob and wheel right there at the end. So the first part is the larger stanza, the 2 sestets, and it's followed at the end right there by that kind of bob and wheel type thing. So here's a little bit more about the rhyme in the poem. One thing I want you to know is there is a lot of enjambment going on, because each of the lines, even though it sounds like there's a rhyme at the end, it's pretty prominent, it still kind of flows on to the next line. You may talk a gin and beer when your quarter's safe out here. There's not a lot of caesura, however. There's not a lot of breaks in the middle. So most of them kind of flow all the way down until you get to that little refrain at the end. The rhyme scheme is interesting. It's kind of an AA, so beer, ear, and then there's Aldershot it, B, which then it goes to CC, slaughter water, and comes back to B with got it, Aldershot it, that's got it. And then it kind of repeats the same pattern again in the second sestet in climb and time, and then it goes queen, then it goes crew new, and din, which is supposed to rhyme with queen. And after that, it gets into that little bob and wheel sort of thing going on there with a refrain. So it's a short refrain attached to a larger stanza. The bob was our regimental beastie Gunga din, that little line that kind of flows into the refrain. And after that, we have, he was din, 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 you limp and lump of brick dust Gunga din. Hi, slippy hitherow, water get it, panny low, you squidgy-nosed old idol Gunga din. So each stanza has a little refrain that kind of repeats that same din, din, and it always ends off with the word Gunga din. So there's some repetition there too. So here's a little bit about the story of the poem. So kind of an overview. So throughout the poem, we find out that Gunga din has been beaten and yelled at by the soldiers. He's been treated terribly. But interestingly enough, the soldier is confessing. He's stating, I know we treated you terribly. We yelled at you. We made fun of you. We looked down on you. And so a lot of this is the soldier voicing his guilt in kind of a gruff, tough, soldierly way of the way he treated Gunga din during his lifetime. Also, he describes the soldier that's dying, describes that how the soldiers look down on Gunga din for his color, his social status, and his lack of proper clothing. Again, remember, he's saying this, and it's kind of a confession as he's dying, or after he's dead, of what he did. He's confessing that he treated Gunga din terribly. We learned that, based on what the soldier sees, Gunga din worked happily, always trying to be on hand to help, that he admired the British soldiers and wanted to be like them. And remember, that's kind of a projection that the soldier is putting on to Gunga din. He's imagining that he is happy to help. He's imagining that he's admiring the British soldiers. Of course, he'd want to be like them. That nothing would make Gunga din happier than if in heaven he is made a British soldier. We learn that Gunga din does give his life to make the passing of a British soldier less miserable. So there the British soldier is. He's shot. He's dying. His throat is parched. Gunga din comes crawling over him, giving him some of the water. It's not very good water, but it's the water that he needs to make this passing less traumatic. And he even plugs up the wound, tries to take care of the wound as best as he can, even though Gunga din himself has been shot and is dying himself. And the dying soldier realizes, either as he's dying or after he's dead in the afterlife, that Gunga is indeed a human being with a soul, and that they will be together, whether they're in heaven or hell. They could end up being together in the same place in the afterlife.